All right, how's everybody doing today? Hotep. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So it is Friday, May 21st, 2021. And we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. So I just wanted to come on for a few minutes to do a brief overview of the online course, the 9-week online course that I teach called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We have a very special guest speaker on Saturday, May 22nd. Our class is each Saturday, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our special guest speaker for Saturday, May 22nd, is going to be archaeologist Nubia Wardford. Archaeologist Sista Nubia Wardford, okay? And she's going to deal with the African origins. She's going to deal with the origins of ancient Kush and the African queens of Antiquity. The origins of ancient Kush and the African queens of Antiquity. Okay, so some of you have seen the Facebook event invite that I posted here, the Facebook event that I posted here on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, for the online course. So I want to give a brief overview of the online course. So it's a 9-week course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place as well. Okay, now we do the classes live, and I'm going to post a link here for you to register for the online class. We do the classes live. All the sessions are archived. Okay, all the sessions are archived, so you can go back and watch it over and over again. You can watch it anytime you want to. All right, so if you can't make it 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, not a problem. As soon as you register, you can watch last week's class and the week before that as well. So we deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. When we deal with the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start talking about it in the 15th century. We can't start talking about it in 1441 with the Portuguese taking Africans into the territory we today call into Mauritania. We can't start there. We have to go back thousands of years and deal with history leading up to that. So we have Sister Nubia Wardford, who's going to be my guest speaker on in our class on May 22nd, and she's going to speak on my radio show on May 21st, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll deal with the origins of ancient Kush and the African queens of Antiquity. All right, so one of the things we'll talk about is Amana Shikito. And this is one of her favorite African queens, Amana Shikito. There was a good article from face2faceafrica.com dealing with facts about the great and wealthy Nubian queen, Amana Shikito, who fought off the Romans. And when we look at this, and Sister Nubia is going to go much deeper into this than I can, the Kandakis, you hear them referred to as the Candaces, but they're actually the Kandakis. The Kandakis of Moor were the queens of the kingdom of Kush, who ruled from the city of Moor circa 284 BC to about 314 Common Era, BCE, before the Common Era, which is the same as before Christ. CE, Common Era, is the same as AD, Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. AD does not mean after death. So they ruled from the city of Moor, 284 BCE to 314 Common Era, also known as in what is now Sudan. Okay, and we know that the lower portion of Egypt and the upper portion of Sudan in ancient times, that area was known as Nubia or Ta-Nehesi. The renowned kingdom of Kush, also known as the kingdom of Napata, the kingdom of Kerma, the Meroitic kingdom, or sometimes called Nubia by some people, is one of the ancient civilizations that were advanced in terms of organization, culture, and politics. Its capital, Moor, located on the Nile in the region of modern-day Sudan, flourished from trade in goods many did not have. But what also made it stronger was the monarchy, largely controlled by women. So this is one of the things that we're going to talk about with archaeologist Nubia Wardford in our online class on Saturday, May 22nd, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. And we deal with, this is a 9-week online course. So if you missed the first couple of weeks, that's fine. As soon as you register, you can go back and watch the previous weeks. That's not a problem. Okay. You can watch them at your pace. But we try to deal with things chronologically in what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We have to deal with ancient Africa. We have to deal with thousands of years of history. We have to deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, and what leads to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Historical events don't happen in a vacuum. They are the culmination of a sequence of historical events that lead up to a larger event taking place. And when you look at the news, I just did Roland Martin's show. I'm a panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered each Friday. I do my radio show 6 days a week. You watch my show, we deal with history, we deal with politics, we deal with current events. And when you look at what's going on politically now, everything from the attack on critical race theory to there's a story from the New York Times dealing with how the state of Texas is going to pass more restrictive laws dealing with what can be taught in schools regarding history and the history of slavery and critical race theory and things like this. And all this ties into history. Whoever controls the teaching of the history will control the future, because the policies and laws, etc., that control the trajectory of the future, who people vote for and the policies they advocate for, is based upon largely their understanding of history. Okay. And Americans are very, very ignorant of history. There was a story from the New York Times from May 20th, 2021. Texas pushes to obscure the state's history of slavery and racism. Texas pushes to obscure the state's history of slavery and racism. And we're going to see if we could pull this article up. Go read this one. We're going to talk about this on our show probably Sunday, okay? Because we're on for 2 hours on Sunday. But when we see these attacks on history and what could be taught in school, we see the attacks on the 1619 Project. And even though there are flaws in the 1619 Project, I wouldn't try to throw the whole thing away or ban teaching from some aspects of it or anything like that. But when we see these attacks on the 1619 Project, we see that Nicole Hannah-Jones, the journalist who spearheaded it, we see she was just denied a tenured professorship at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. When we see things like this story here from, let's pull this up. This is from USA Today. Mock slave auctions, racist lessons, how U.S. history class often traumatizes, dehumanizes Black students. And every February, I see these stories dealing with slave lessons gone wrong, and the history of slavery being incorrectly taught, African-American children being traumatized by mock slave auctions and reenactments of slavery, things like this, right? But all this ties into history. And history and laws, the history and policies and laws and things like this, they all intersect. Okay, you can't separate them. They all intersect. All right, so then we look at now this story right here. This is from March 4th, 2021. Okay, USA Today. Then we look at this one here. Republican state lawmakers want to punish schools that teach the 1619 Project. When we look at the article from from New York Times from May 20th, 2021, dealing with the state of Texas, you have this battle that's going on, and you have many Republicans that don't want to teach about the history of slavery don't want to teach about systemic racism. Because then if you start talking about the history of slavery and systemic racism and things like this, then that deals with the maldistribution of wealth, power, and resources in this country. And you start really understanding racism and white supremacy. So then if you start understanding it, then you have to realize, okay, you have to do something about it. They don't want to do anything about it. This is why they're attacking the $5 billion that's going to African-American farmers and farmers of color in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that no Republicans voted for. You've heard me talk about this on my show numerous times. They're attacking that and saying it's racist to give the $4 billion in loan forgiveness to African-American farmers and farmers of color, but you're dealing with 100 years of racism and discrimination coming from the federal government against non-white farmers. They don't want to deal with 100 years of racism. They want to attack the remedy. They want to attack the remedy. If you look at this article here, this is from May 20th, 2021. Texas pushes to obscure the state's history of slavery and racism. Texas is awash in bills amid aimed at fending off critical examinations of the state's past. Well, why are you so afraid to talk about the history of Texas and the history of slavery and racism in Texas? Because Texas was admitted into the Union in 1845 as a slaveholding state after winning its independence from Mexico in 1836. And when you study the Texas Rangers, the state police Texas Rangers, the Texas Rangers got their start in about 1836 as bounty hunters hired by slave owners in Texas to go into Mexico to capture runaway slaves who ran away from Texas into Mexico because Mexico is free territory. There was a Southern Underground Railroad going from Texas into Mexico once Vicente Guerrero becomes the second president of Mexico in about 1828, 1829, and he was a former slave. He was of African descent, and he outlawed slavery. So you're going to have African Americans running away, enslaved Africans running into Mexico. There's an article from the history.com. Okay. And I just did a show a few days ago dealing with dealing with slavery and the Mexican American War. How many of you all saw that? I did an extensive show dealing with slavery and the Mexican American War. Mexican American War of 1846 to 1848. And then this led to the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This led to the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which gave the U.S. about 6 states from Mexico. This is what ended the Mexican American War. Let me pull this up here. This is the little known Underground Railroad that ran south to Mexico. The little known Underground Railroad that ran south to Mexico. This is from history.com, official website of the History Channel. Read this article right here. Now, this is some of the type of information that we deal with in the online class. We deal with thousands of years of history. The little known Underground Railroad that ran south to Mexico. Okay. This is from October 24th, 2018 from history.com. History.com is the official website of the History Channel. So in the online course, and it's on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do the classes live. You can join us live in class. All the sessions are recorded, so you can go back and watch it over and over again. I'm going to post a link here. You can register for the class. The class is normally $130. It's on sale $80. And all the classes are also archived, so you'll still have access to the class. You can still watch them even after the course is over with. All right. So we posted the link here. Is also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So one of the resources I use in the class is the 52-page study from the Southern Poverty Law Center called Teaching Hard History American Slavery. Teaching Hard History American Slavery. And this is something that you can use with your children, but this is a good resource because what it does is, and I downloaded it and I took it to the printer and got it printed up. I also interviewed Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries, Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries is the chair of the advisory board that put this together. He's a nephew of one of my teachers, Dr. Leonard Jeffries. And I interviewed Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries. We were dealing with the civil rights movement and John Lewis and SNCC and things like this. But we talked about this a little bit. One of the things that this does is it documents many of the ways that the history of slavery is being incorrectly taught in schools across the country. And then it gives numerous recommendations on how to more correctly teach that history. But you can also use this with your children at home as well. You can use this with your children at home. You can use this with study groups for children. You can use this with church study groups, all different types of things like this. Okay, you don't just have to use it in school. So you can go to splcenter.org, Southern Poverty Law Center, splcenter.org, and download Teaching Hard History American Slavery, Teaching Hard History American Slavery. Okay, but some of the things that we deal with in the online course, we deal with what was the transatlantic slave trade? Okay. What were some of the events that led up to the transatlantic slave trade starting? And you have to deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. Okay. Because they're taking the teachings from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt into Europe, from the Nile Valley region of Africa. They're taking this into Europe. This is going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages and save Europe. All right. What role did Christopher Columbus play? Columbus was crucial to the spread of racism, capitalism, slavery, the exploitation of indigenous people. And this is also going to lead to the Asiento de Negros about 1517, 1518 with King Charles V as well, which was a license that Spain gave to other slave trading companies to supply Spanish colonies with African slaves. Okay, the Asiento. We do when did Africans first come to the U.S. as slaves? Did Africans sell themselves into slavery? We deal with that complicated history. It's a very, very complicated history also, because we had a cultural servitude system in Africa. We did not have slavery, as Europeans call it, or chattel slavery. We did not have that. We deal with when did were African people in America before the slave trade? Yes, we were. And I talk about Dr. David Imhotep in his book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. He spoke to my class back in, when I taught it back in February and March. He spoke to the class then. When you register for our online class, you'll also have access to the class I did in February and March, and you can watch the class that where Dr. David Imhotep spoke. But this book here, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, deals with the African presence in the Americas going back at least 51,700 years ago. You're talking about the Khoisan, who come from Southern Africa and have the oldest DNA on the planet. Okay, this is all things that we deal with in this 9-week online course. All right. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, shocking archaeological discoveries that are causing experts to rethink everything. These discoveries are coming out every week or every other week. Okay, we saw the lost city of Egypt that dates back about something like 3,000 years ago. The lost city of Egypt that just came out in the last 2 months. So these discoveries are coming out every week, every other week, and it's pushing the timelines back on a lot of these civilizations and a lot of these discoveries. We talk about insurance companies that took out insurance policies on slave ships and enslaved Africans on the plantations. Okay, one of them was the Nautilus Mutual Life Insurance Company that was founded in 1845, and then it's going to change its name to the New York Life Insurance Company. All right, and for the first 3 years, they took out about 500 insurance policies on slaves on the plantations, because there were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. We weren't just picking cotton. We were engineers. We were working on ships. We were working in factories and mills, all different types of things like this. All right. We deal with Freemasonry, America, and the Founding Fathers, origins of the term America and Africa. We deal with the three great West African civilizations of Ghana, Songhai, and Mali. The problem with slave movies, while we've been being bombarded with slave movies and a slave-themed TV show. We talk about the First Holy Trinity. This may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. The First Holy Trinity of Asar, Aset, and Heru, and the origins of the Immaculate Conception story. This goes back to ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet. We deal with the links to ancient Kemet and Christianity, and the fake Willie Lynch letter 1712. These are just some of the things that we deal with in the online class. This is Dr. David Imhotep here. And page 14 of his book deals with a discovery in Allendale County, South Carolina in 2004 by Dr. Albert Goodyear that documented 13 different types of evidence to document an African presence in the Americas that date back at least 51,700 years ago. These were the Khoisan. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. 13 different types of evidence documenting an African presence in this country dating back at least 51,700 years ago. Now, here's an article from ScienceDaily.com about Dr. Albert Goodyear and his discovery. This article came out November 18th, 2004. It's still there. You can read it. It's called New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 Years Ago. New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 years ago. All right, so we'll see you in class on Saturday, May 22nd. Our guest speaker will be archaeologist Sista Nubia Wardford. If you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, right on the home page, you can, we have the information for the class. When you scroll down, you see the information for our radio show, and we have the information for the class, next class, May 22nd. And you see Sista Nubia Wardford. This is a picture of her in the Sudan. She goes to the Sudan and does archaeological digs. And click right here to register here. It takes you to the next page. And click right here to enroll. And as soon as you register, you can start watching last week's class, and you'll be ready for our class Saturday, May 22nd. All right, I'm going to post a link here. Once again, you can register for class. All right, and then also if you want to just register for this one session, it'll be $15. If you just want to register for this one session, it's a better value, of course, if you register for the entire course. But you can email me with any questions at ahnshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, ahnshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I'm setting it up now to register just for the one class also with Sista Nubia. But it's a better value to do the entire course, and that gives you access to the classes we taught in February and March also. All right, we got to get out of here. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever.